Hi, I'm Dr. Caroline Leaf, and welcome to my podcast, Cleaning Up the Mental Mess. In today's podcast, I'm actually going to be talking about stress again. This is stress part 2, and having a completely different understanding and view of stress. We just say the word stress and we think, bad. But actually, stress is an incredible word. It is the word that we use for how our mind actually responds to life experiences and what's going on inside of us, and a combination of those two. So stress is really not a bad word. Without stress, we couldn't focus properly, we couldn't concentrate, etc. But we've been so conditioned to respond negatively to stress as though it's negative. And what research shows is that the way that you view something, and in this case specifically stress, is going to influence how you actually use that. So in other words, stress is actually on your side, but if you view it as something negative, it tips the scales in the wrong direction and a whole neurophysiology goes wrong. So one of the things, for example, that I found in my research is that if you see stress as toxic, as bad, so you're in a stressful situation, you feel the threat response and you stay in that threat response and you think, this is bad, you shift into toxic stress, your whole neurophysiology responds. And one of the things that we saw, and I went into this in a lot of detail in part 1, but one of the things that we saw is that the brain waves change in such a way that your homocysteine levels increase, so there's more inflammation. So by looking at things as toxic stress, as stress being toxic and everything is toxic and you're not going to manage and stress is bad, it affects your brain waves and it causes inflammation. But when you see stress as something that's actually good for you and it's helping prime your mind, brain and body and your psychoneurobiology correctly, then your brain waves rebalance and your inflammation levels drop down. So homocysteine actually drops to a normal level, for example, and we also then feel like we can cope and our clarity of mind, etc., increase. So how can we do that? Well, I want you to think of life experiences a little bit like a volcano. And if you think of how a volcano works, basically there's this energy going on inside the volcano, and it's like that for a long period of time, and then every now and again you'll get a little burst from the volcano. Eventually it explodes, it erupts, and that eruption then causes a lot of damage, and then as the lava cools off, the soil is remineralized, and actually the remineralized soil grows back, the grass grows back even greener on that remineralized soil because it's actually now healthier, and they make skin products from the remineralized soil, from the lava and so on. So the issue that burst in your life caused a lot of pain, but once you get through it, it actually brings a lot of learning and gain and health into your life. And so when you think of that can also help you to shift your view of stress. Because stress then, in terms of this volcano analogy, is this life is going to happen. Things are erupting and things are boiling up and they get to a point where we don't really manage them properly, or we are trying to manage them, and then these little explosions happen and eventually the volcano erupts and we have the situation, but we realize, okay, this is stressful, but I can learn from it, so the grass grows greener, etc., etc. Or we have the situation where, and then eventually, let me complete that analogy, eventually we get the mind management under control and we learn how to recognize the stress response in our body is working for us. So when those explosions happen, we manage them more efficiently. The lava still comes out and the green grass grows after again, but we don't have as many eruptions before the volcano goes dormant. You see, eventually a volcano does go dormant and it doesn't explode anymore. But you still see the volcano, the remains of the volcano, which is like your story, what you've gone through, but the eruptions aren't happening anymore. So what we see is that when you learn to recognize that the stress response in your mind, brain, and body is there to help you, you move to the point of getting a dormant volcano more efficiently. Because when you see stress is working for you, you're thinking with more clarity, more intelligence, you're wiser at how you handle the situation. You're just more there in getting to the point where you can actually solve that problem so that the volcano explodes maybe once or twice instead of constantly exploding. So toxic stress keeps us in an explosive state, and that wears our body down, as I also mentioned, and ages our body, shortens our telomeres, reduces our telomerase, all those things that I spoke about last week. So by bringing in that volcano analogy into our understanding, what we're doing when we shift our shift our perception is we are learning to get the volcano to erupt less and get dormant quicker in whatever the situation is. Now, the more you do that, the more you build resilience, or not build, the more you activate your natural resilience inside of you, which then can help with whatever the next situation that comes up. Because stress is inevitable. Everything in life is going to create stress. And that's normal, okay? It's normal. It's what's not normal is when we see the stress as abnormal and that response is abnormal, and the way we're viewing it then actually doesn't work for us, it works against us, and then it becomes so much more difficult to deal with the stressor, the thing that's created that response in us in the first place. So we get tremendous freedom when we can just understand and view it this differently. So I want to give you a quick study just to help now hone in on and help you really apply this volcanic analogy a little bit more easily. And this is a study that was done back in 2013 where they basically showed two videos to two groups of people. In the one video, stress was seen as debilitating to performance. So the thing that we don't want. So it threw the people into toxic stress. So in other words, they told the people that when your body, heart pumps and heart pounding, adrenaline pumping, tension in your body, panic, all these things, all these responses, your emotions and so on, and your behaviors changing, they were told that that's debilitating, absolutely debilitating, and that it's going to make you feel worse, etc., etc. The other video that the other group watched, they were told, hey, when you feel all of this, it's actually good for you. It means that your mind, brain, and body are primed, like I've been explaining. So the participants that viewed the latter one, they actually scored higher on the stress mindset scale. They saw stress as something that enhanced their performance and their health and their happiness improve. So when we see the stress response as our friend, it enhances performance, it enhances health, and it enhances happiness. And it helped people get through their issues. They saw a barrier and a challenge and toxic thoughts as something that they could deal with, as opposed to being completely crushed by them and just like sunk, completely overcome by the lava. So that's just a little bit of another way of looking at this. But once again, I remind you that we are bombarded daily with stress, and we're bombarded daily with messages that have wired into our unconscious mind. And our unconscious mind is 90 to 99% of who we are, and it's our driving force. And our unconscious mind is mixed, is a whole mixture of messages from our environment and our past and our nurturing, all these things that are wiring in without you even being aware of it. And it's the other part of the unconscious mind is our wisdom, and our ability, lots of like having the wisdom and the answers to the things in life. And then the other part of the unconscious is this search kind of component where your unconscious is constantly searching for the things that are debilitating to your functioning, things that are toxic, that are things that you've absorbed into yourself and have wired into your mind, brain, and body and unconscious mind that are driving you. And it's looking for those, and it's making you aware of those, and it's also looking for the good ones and making you aware of those too, so that you can grow the good ones and that you can deal with the toxic ones. So it's all about being on your side. So in order to do that you have to be in this state of stress in order for your unconscious mind that's literally wired for love, wired for protection, to find what's debilitating and send these through as signals. So when you become aware of these signals, as you've heard me say so often, you're not going to just overnight see stress as something that works for you. It's going to take you cycles of 63 to 66 days to help wire in this different perception of stress. So in part 3, I'm going to give you some little exercises that you can do within the neurocycle to help you with that. So don't forget to watch part 1, rewatch part 2 if you need to, and go ahead and also watch part 3. Look forward to seeing you next time.